review, East Lyme Town Hall, Upper Meeting Room. It's February 21st, 2024. It's 5 o'clock. We'll stand and do the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, good evening, everyone, and welcome. This special meeting is going to be for budget review purposes. And so the first area we're going to look at is the budget for Commission on Aging, and that's section 418 in the budget book. Books. So we're going to start there. Do we have a spokesperson tonight that wants to discuss their budget from the Commission? I think. And you want to do it from the, yes, okay. And then just for the record, you should identify yourself and what your role is here.
Sure. Hi, I'm Christine Karamanica, the director of the Senior Center.
Thank you, Christine.
I do have the PowerPoint printed. Would everybody like a copy, please?
Copies are always good.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I haven't done this in weeks.
Okay, so we can go to the next.
There we go. You can pull it to your seat.
How does it? Okay. Okay, so the first slide is our missions and our goals. So it's what the Senior Center does. So programs, transportation, and social services. Under programs, we have fitness, recreational, arts, games, education, and trips. Transportation, we have transportation through East Lyme and Niantic, Waterford, New London, Lyme, and Old Lyme. Social services, we help with energy assistance, renter's rebate, Medicare assistance, case management, town agency concerns, just to name a few. Senior Resources Area Agency on Aging Focal Point. It is a mouthful. What that means is we respond to diverse needs and interests, enhancing their dignity, support their independence, and encouraging their involvement in and with the center and the community. So envisioning the future. So we just had a feasibility study done, and with that, the cost and operation for modernizing the Senior Center. Envision an environment that will continue to engage and support the healthy aging of East Lyme residents. Expand the Senior Center as a necessity to keep up with the demand of services and interest for the community for older adults to actively engage in place at home. Here's the senior population. So according to the National Council on Aging, older adults age 65 plus are one of the fastest growing groups in the nation, expected to reach 80.8 million in 2040. There were 55.7 million adults age 65 plus living in the U.S. in 2020, 30.8 million women, and 24.8 men. America's older population has grown by 38% since 20 10, compared to an increase of 2% for the under 65. So this came from surrounding communities of the 60-plus population, Town Profiles 2023. So if you look at the top, the state of Connecticut has 885,046, 25% are 60-plus. East Lyme has 5,950, which is 31%. These are the East Lyme senior housing complexes that we have. There's a total of 556 units, but if you multiply that by how many people live in the units, that's a lot of people. And I know we're still building more, so this number is definitely going to grow. Transportation. So our fleet consists of 2 vehicles. We had a 2010 that we just retired. It had 98,155 miles. We have a 2017 Ford with 70,000. That's a little bit more now. And then we have a 2021 with 26,509 miles, and that also is a little bit more. And we are expecting a new bus. It was with a 2021 grant, and we haven't received that bus yet, so we're hoping we're going to be receiving it sometime this summer. So if you look to the right, we have unduplicated number of riders. So for 2022, 2023, we had 179 unduplicated riders. And then we had 282 riders we average a month, and we average about 788 rides per month. And then we have our senior center programs, so recreational, fitness, art, games, education, trips, and nutrition. So for Meals on Wheels for 2022-23, we had a total of 9,010 Meals on Wheels. That number was a little bit less, but it's probably due to COVID. So in 2021, 2022, the numbers were higher. And then total cafe lunches, that number went up by 1. We had 746 for 2022-2023 fiscal year. Unduplicated attendance, we have 1,790 for 2022-2023, and that number you can see has grown. Total attendance for programs for 2022-2023 has grown significantly, 21,595, again because of COVID. And I just see all those numbers increasing. Social services. So we have a couple of programs. We have Renters Rebate and Energy Assistance. And for 2022, we had 210 applicants that we processed at the senior center. And for energy assistance, we had 166. And this year we have a social worker, and so you know, right now we're at 247. And here is the operating budget. Do you want me to go through line by line, or?
That's,
I can go,
you know what, maybe address any, you know, if there's
any
spikes
big
or
differences,
dips.
okay.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
So for the first one, 211, Senior Center Director, that's at a 0% currently. And for our bus drivers, that has changed. We have 4 part-time drivers. So that went up $26,387 from last year. Last year was 28,781. But our full-time driver, which was from account 311, she was at 45,571. So in reality, with our bus driver position being at 55,195, we take away our full-time driver at 45,571, and it's actually a savings of 9,600 difference, I'm sorry, of 9,624. Plus, we're not paying any benefits with that position, that full-time position. And so far, the part-time drivers has been working out pretty well.
So can I just, sorry, it's just a little confusing. So you have 4 part-time drivers now, but previously you had 1 full-time and some part-time?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So currently, we actually have 3. We have 4 in the works, and they're all part-time. And right now, so I was hoping for 61 hours, and Kevin put me down to 55 hours, but we...
Dan.
Gotta do what we gotta do.
And right, and so our buses are full every day, taking to New London and Old Lyme and for doctor's appointments and for the grocery store and for haircuts and food pantries and...
So if somebody's on the bus, I'm just curious, then do they just have to kind of like a school bus, wait until their stop comes around type thing?
They do. So we need 24 hours in advance notice.
Okay.
And we have, 2 buses. So our bus drivers are wonderful. So if we drop one, it's not always the same bus driver to pick up. So we try to get them as soon as, we can. And right now, we're actually down a bus. We typically have 3 buses, but we're still waiting for that 5310 grant from 2021. So hopefully it comes this summer. So when a bus has to go out of service, which on Friday it's actually one of them is going to be out of service, then we're down a bus. So we've been using Parks and Rec's car now and then, which has been helpful. But again, it's only fits 2-3 people versus our bus. So. And I am in the process of writing another grant for another bus. It's a 2023 5310 grant. Any other questions on the bus?
Yes, before you go on, so with the reduction in hours and with that budget cut, how is that going to impact those services?
Well, it's 5 hours a week, so that is a lot of hours. So we're going to have to, say no to some rides, which is unfortunate. People have to, go for chemotherapy and dialysis, and they rely on our transportation.
And we have one
Food pantries.
Right, we have one handicapped van.
They're both.
They're both handicapped.
They're both. Yep. And actually, that's one bus is going in on Friday because of our lift. We're having lift issues right now.
So could you tell us how that impacts people that you serve?
Well, just for example, the food pantry, we had to deny rides, so people aren't getting, food. They're not getting the medical care that they need. We don't realize, we can just hop in our car and go, and these folks just rely on us. Some don't have family. We are their family. So every hour that we can use. I honestly, for my goals for 10-year projection, I can see us being open, 7 days a week, because there's just a need for it. Especially when we look at how many senior housing complexes we have in town.
Thank you.
Then we have 311. That was 175,071. There was step increases. The program coordinator, and then we have an administrative assistant. She was a senior center associate, so that was an increase in salary. And then we hired a part-time receptionist, so that was new in August of 2023. And then we have a new social worker. So that's ARPA funded. So it was ARPA funded for this fiscal year, and half is going to be funded. Hopefully, I met with the Board of Finance. Now I'm going to go to the town meeting, and hopefully this is going to be covered. So for this budget line, it's for 26 weeks. So ARPA would pick up the other half.
So I'll just jump in here for a sec. So some of these accounts look like the first line bus driver, or the second line, the bus driver line, appears to be 92% increased.
Yeah.
In prior years, that bus driver line was for the part-time bus drivers. Now that we're transitioning to all of the bus drivers being part-time, we've moved that full-time salary line. The full-time bus driver we had that was originally under 311 retired, and we backfilled that with the part-time, the 213 number. So the 311 increase of 14.89%, that is driven by the 5.25% increase for the UPSU union employees. That happens every couple of years. There's a special year where they get their GWI as well as a step increase. That's this year. The other part of that is, as Kristen was saying, the half year of the social worker. In this budget, we anticipate 26 weeks of the social worker being general fund budgeted. The other 26 weeks, the senior center ARPA grant. The part-time admin that was added this year is not in this budget. So the 25-hour week part-time admin is not in this budget. That is being paid, is going to be paid, pending approvals, using the Tumbari estate money that was given to the town this past year. A senior in town passed away and left and bequested the town about $94,000. Part of the stipulation was it had to be used for senior center, to benefit the senior center. So our proposal is to use approximately $25,000 this year to fund that administrative assistant position. The idea is maybe this year we fully fund it, next year 2/3 funded, the following year 1/3 funded, and at the end of those 3 or 4 years, that'll still leave approximately $40,000 of that estate money for the senior center to spend on other things. But this budget, is already up almost 18% without that administrative assistant added. So we just had to think creatively of how to keep the employees we have over there. And I know I do not like to use one-time sources to cover continuing operations.
Right.
But it's about $25,000 a year. I figured I was willing to swallow that pill for a couple.
So
of
Kevin, that's for the receptionist, because the administrative assistant
There's
is full-time.
You have a
She's
full-time admin assistant and then the part-time admin assistant.
in the part-time. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
No, I just, so, your handout is the same as what we're seeing.
It is not.
Yeah, that's my confusion.
What we have in the books is not the same as what's on.
Right. So our books are different. So what is the real,
Um,
Can I see what you have?
yeah, let me just see what
Yeah, I was wondering where you're getting the numbers from.
Thanks, Jason. So this is probably an older version of that.
Yeah, that's definitely an older version.
Okay. So this is the real deal.
This
This is not real deal. Let me pull this up.
Okay.
So I thought that number did look a little high, the 175.
So the one in the book is
Is
old.
correct. No, the one in the book is correct. The one we're looking at is an older version.
Okay,
So
so,
let me check my
Okay,
notes
so
for a
the
sec.
book is correct, okay.
There was just a couple versions floating around.
Okay.
I think that was a.
yeah, I'm glad it
I
wasn't
recognize
just
the
me.
green typing there. So let me just pull one thing aside real quick. So. There was a few versions of this floating around,
Yeah,
so
yeah, no, I
I
get it.
apologize for not reviewing that this morning when you sent it over, Kristen. Let me just pull this up here. All right. So,
There we go. That's it.
all right. So, apologies for anyone looking at the
No.
prior presentation there, but I can just kind of walk through these numbers.
Okay.
So
Great.
in this, the original request, the 189 there for line 311 had the part-time admin assistant in there. We removed that, and I believe that request had maybe it was the full-time social worker in there, and then we talked about the ARPA money, and so I think that's why it came down the $50,000 there from the 189,979 to the 139,729.
All right.
Could you say that again?
So we moved the part-time admin assistant. We moved it from the general fund, and that'll be paid using the Tumbari estate.
So in effect, that is not a cut. It's just a shift of money.
It's a shift.
The
money,
taxpayers aren't footing the bill. The
Tomorrow.
estate money we had is covering that.
Gift is.
For now.
So that's why we were able to drop it by the 8.3%.
Okay.
Correct. That's what we were able to. I could have that 17.9. I was like,
sense.
holy moly! How did we let that? So
Yeah.
I thought it was under
That's what I
10.
was saying. Holy
So,
cow.
I know.
All right, good.
but thanks for
good.
bringing that up because I was sitting over here. My computer was
No.
commandeered. So.
Okay, we're all on the same page.
And then
Okay.
So, do you mind if I just ask a quick question? Are we on the same page? With some of
I
these
have, my numbers
Because-
are different. I'm looking throughout.
Okay.
Her numbers are different too.
Well, the numbers on her handout are different than,
Oh, that's what she's looking at. So-
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
okay.
So why doesn't Kevin take us through it then if you have
Yeah,
the right
since you have the numbers and then,
opening it up now.
Thank you.
Can we get her a copy or?
Okay. So
Thank you.
I wrote all
it's
this
kind of
down
tough to see
already.
with the American
Nice.
flag
Thank you, Jason.
blocking me a little bit, but
Thank you.
so here was the initial request, 189,979. I don't exactly know their positions. I think one's a program
Coordinator.
coordinator,
Yep.
the admin assistant, the part-time admin assistant, the senior center social worker. So we, this is funded half ARPA, half town. We cut that in half. It was fully put in there originally for the full amount. Obviously, if ARPA's paying half, we can cut that down. And then we moved this one, the part-time admin. So that's how we got to this 139.
there you go.
Okay. All right.
All right, and then the four part-time bus drivers, we allotted for a total of 68 and a half hours of scheduled driving, and that's where we got the $68,000. So
Yeah, that explains it.
does that help answer any
Yeah, that helps.
questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'll pull
Yeah,
this
I
up.
could
I'll
not-
pull
I
this
couldn't
up for
reconcile it.
trying to
Wait a minute,
understand
what am I
it.
doing?
So
Yeah.
the department had requested 68,000. And then the first selectmen's proposed budget has 68,000. So there's no cut there.
Hold on. That might have been that was
Right, because we had
What
gone
did they
down
go-
to, I had 61 and you had gone down to 55.
yeah. So the total is 68,000. We met. Kristen was in the first selectman's office. The three of us, hash these numbers out. That's where we get to the 68,000. Because I believe it was cut back even a little further, and
Yeah.
and somehow got up to 68 and a half
So you
again.
worked that out.
So it's up
and-
to
and was
68.
reducing the other one,
Yeah.
we're able to increase bus driver.
Yeah, so total bus, so we have
So
68 and a half hours for bus drivers in a week.
And yet, when we heard your remarks, I think we're confused because when we heard
Right.
your remarks,
Yeah.
you were talking about a reduction.
Right,
Right.
correct.
Yeah, so now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right, so now if it's 68, that's better.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Exactly.
so
So
there
it
is no
doesn't-
cut.
That's the
there's no
offset
cut.
Been
from
an
one to the other.
increase.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is no reduction.
So there's no reduction.
And bus drivers.
No.
In
Okay.
bus
And
drivers.
in bus rides.
311 wasn't a cut.
Right.
It was shifted.
We're
no
keeping the
bus rides.
services the same, right? But we're,
There's a
but we're,
shift
di- we're,
of money.
Right.
Yeah.
When, after we had talked, that's what I was told. I didn't know that we went up to 68, which is great.
yeah. Right, so we were able to maintain the 68 and then reduce the part-time by using that other fund.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
So,
Great,
Do you have a question?
good news.
And achieve a little bit better numbers on the bottom line, which is what we're all trying to get to. I guess the rest of your budget, any other, pretty straightforward.
Just
We had,
one quick question. What is random testing? Is that like drug testing?
Correct. And it's no longer mandated.
It isn't?
No.
Shocking.
And who would that be, like your bus drivers or?
Just the bus drivers.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
But we
So I
still-
talked amongst others, centers, and that's,
But
so
we still do it, right? That's why we have the amount in there.
Nope, so I,
It looks like we still have.
Yeah, it looks like it's still in the budget,
That's why I'm asking.
We still have,
at
we
least
went
on
up,
this sheet.
so it's
Okay.
no longer mandated. Are we doing it or not doing it?
we're not doing it.
Okay.
So your bottom line number looks even better now.
Yep, I was down 300.
That's,
Okay,
okay.
so this is off.
All right, so
Is
this is
that
not
still
accurate.
required for our town drivers?
Yeah, there's definitely a requirement to, if you're driving a, like our public works guys, if, you know, if anyone's involved in like an accident or anything like that, they get tested.
Yeah,
how
my
the
numbers
bus drivers are out
are
of
very
that, but-
different.
So as we're going to these part-time drivers now, that means that they're not getting any benefits?
No benefits.
So,
Well, I would, the chair of the commission is here this evening too, and I wonder if we might hear a few words from the chair.
Chair of the commission?
Yes.
Mike's here.
Could I just ask one, before we go, I'm still trying to understand, on the random testing,
Correct.
on our budget that's up there, I see $400,
Yeah,
is that
that's-
right?
Yeah, no, so I'm looking at my budget, and it's different.
So your budget
Across-
you went to zero.
So I went to 0.
You did, and I see that
So I
on
think
your.
I did.
This is,
So,
And also my telephone line, and that's gone up.
Okay, so if we just look at that, is it really 400? On our budget, we have 400. Should that be,
No longer.
okay,
that
Zero.
should be zero then?
okay, so it should be 0. Okay.
what should
Yeah.
be 0? I'm sorry.
So.
And also, if I look above on longevity, we are down, if we go all the way back up for longevity.
Let's just look at, I just want to examine random testing.
Okay,
So on the budget that we have in front of us in our books, it's $400. But your sheet, you had zero.
right, we no longer have that.
So do we need to reduce ours, that 400, should that come out, Kevin, or?
Yeah, and
Okay.
the,
We're going to take that out. That should be zero.
so on this one right here, I just, as I filled it in, I
Yeah, it's just
I
a
marked
typo.
it there because
Yeah,
So,
okay.
may I ask a question? So
Yes.
I fully understand there's lots of confusion, but I think I'm good. We've got one that we're going by, and then we've got the other one. So at some point, we're gonna find the right number, okay?
Right.
So, with that being said, the random testing is no longer being mandated.
No longer.
My question to you is, shouldn't we continue with it anyway? It was mandated for a reason. All bus drivers should be tested. So I'm going to throw that one out there. I know that it's a savings of $400, but I would also argue that it's probably worth the $400 to have the testing done anyway, regardless of whether or not it's mandated or not. I just want to put that out there.
Okay. Yeah,
Interesting argument, yeah.
so it's tough too with the random, just so you know, so there's more to them just getting random drug tested. So it takes away from a driver, so we have a whole day scheduled, somebody has a doctor's appointment, and then they randomly get tested. So there goes rides, somebody that's been expecting to go to the doctors, now they can't go to the doctors. So a lot of thought did go into taking away that, just talking to the drivers as well. And, our one driver's been here 11 years.
It's more than just the money.
It's more than just the money,
Schedule
right?
impacts their-
Exactly, exactly.
And when what are they testing for? Just like, THC or alcohol or whatever? Okay.
Hopefully they don't do away with
Have we
it
ever had
for
a
bus
problem?
drivers for
Do we have
children.
problems typically with
Not that I know of, no.
Okay, all right. So maybe, given, I appreciate your argument,
Yeah.
Candace. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I
No
thought about
worries.
that too a little bit, but
Yeah.
it seems
Yeah.
like there's another aspect to it being the disruption to the schedule and seniors that
Right,
need
Yeah,
Lyme.
thank
right,
you
right.
for letting
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
thought did go into
No,
this
no,
as
I'm
well.
sure it did.
And I
understand
talked to
why you're
other-
saying
I
that.
Yeah.
appreciate you illuminating that for us.
All right, so that's a 0.
Okay. Yeah.
Can we go down the list to make sure that we have, because she said.
Well, if I just
phone-
go, I mean, starting from
Okay,
the top, I mean, my
Okay.
numbers are off.
that will work, go ahead.
So longevity, so we currently only have one employee eligible for longevity, so that went down 150. So it was 350. So now it's 200.
Okay, so that number's supposed to be 200, which actually aligns with your operating budget number that you came forward.
Right.
Okay, so I'm writing 200 in my,
So we're going to go to 200.
And then for 412,
Yeah.
for part-time seasonal, so there's a slight decrease there to 725. That's due to skipping July and August Commission on Aging meetings for the recording secretary.
All right, so a little reduction there.
And then 215, that was 840, but next year they are going up to, it's going to go up $160. It's going to go up to 1,000. And that's for our Schedules Plus software.
So you want to increase that from our sheet to 1,000 to go up to 160?
Yep, that's what it's going to be next year.
That scheduling software, is that used to figure out the bus routes, the best possible route to take?
That's one piece of it. It's registration, so everybody that comes to the senior center is in there, and we get all of our stats, a lot of our stats from there. We schedule rides.
Then the telephone internet,
Yep, so that's up as well.
so what's the real number here, 3742?
Yep,
All right, so we'll want to adjust ours, is that right?
yep. So that went up because we all have cell phones, but also the landline went way up. And our drivers have cell phones. Our drivers didn't have cell phones before, but they need them because when they get to a house, if somebody's not coming out, they need a phone, and they were using their own personal phones. So I didn't feel that was right. So now they're using.
3,000 even?
So for the telephone and internet, it's $3,742. So that actually went up by $1,892.32. And then program services, I had that at 2,600, and that's because we have entertainment, and the cost of entertainment has gone up. And that's based on, once a month entertainment. So we're trying to average 200, but it's tough to even average, 200 a month on entertainment for our folks.
All right, so, yeah, 2,400, okay.
And then it was the random.
Can you live at 2,400, or do you feel that you need to catch up?
We stayed open on Fridays for, a reason. And so we have bingo every Friday. And I always say we stayed open because if we're not open, it just makes for a really, really long weekend for some people. They leave on Friday and we're like, have a good weekend. But some people don't. They look, we're all they have
You're
sometimes.
saying you really need that 20.
So I'm really saying we need that because entertainment has really gone up. And it's hard to, at $200 to find. And we do it once a month. Or trying to do it once a month. And with 200 even, in 200 we won't even be able to do it, really once a month because some entertainers are more than that.
And what about the vehicle inspections? And yours, it's 540, so we can bring ours down a little bit?
No, that's going to be the same.
That's going to be the same?
Yeah, that's the
So we can go
same.
from 680 to 540.
Yep, 540.
And then
Oh, I'm sorry, 540 from, it's the
fleet
same from last
management. Now,
year.
you have 523,
I have 523 because we have 3 vehicles.
so that's going down.
And it's going to go down because, so we currently have two buses. We typically have 3. So we're not going to be getting our bus until sometime summer. So that will go down by the time we get the bus and get everything on the bus that we need. So that's why that's less.
and that's grant funded. Is that what you had said
That,
earlier?
yes.
Right, and that you were working on another.
Another one for another bus for next year.
Bravo for doing that.
Yeah,
I said that
thank
the
you.
last time you were here too.
Yeah,
You
thank
do a
you.
really great job.
Thank you.
And so your professional conference and services, that's down to 655?
So that went down to 655 because typically we have CPR training. Last year, I think it was for like 9 people, and this year, I have 2 members. Let's see.
Okay.
So that was the big chunk of it,
Transportation, you went up a little bit. We had 975 on ours, but.
and that's
yeah,
right because
go up a little.
yeah, the cost.
1179.
Yeah, and we also have the new social worker.
Yeah. Miscellaneous supplies.
So I asked for $200 more just because the cost has just gone up.
Okay.
And then the same thing with program supplies. So every year we have a 90s plus tea, and then we have a volunteer recognition breakfast, and we also have a veterans breakfast.
So you
And
need
again,
another 200.
costs have just gone up.
All right. And then we finally get down to program subsidy. That comes down. You had 3,000, and
Yep,
we're gonna reduce it to 3,000.
yep. So down to 3,000.
And so then we finally get down to kitchen supplies.
Right, which is at 250. So I increased it to 500 because we
Okay.
do need some new kitchen supplies.
So what we'll do is, you can rerun this at some point. We'll get new sheets.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I've never seen these numbers.
Yeah.
So
Well,
so what do you want to make the changes now? Or are we going to talk about them? Like, or how do you want to do this? Because like really, it's like I need like a vote or
Yeah,
or
so-
some sort of like in order to change anything. You know what I
Right.
mean? I don't.
Yeah. So what's the feeling about changing our sheet to the numbers that we just talked about? Anyone, how do we feel about that?
I'm okay with changing the numbers
Yeah, second
to match the numbers that are needed here tonight. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's wise for us to have in our possession
The actual
the thoughts and
numbers.
opinions of the professionals that are managing the facility. So
Okay.
otherwise, we kind of flying blind.
Yeah, and I think we end up in a.
Well, what do we end up with for the bottom line then?
So I know the biggest difference is going to be to the admin position because I had that under.
I think it improves our bottom line a little bit.
So it's gonna be less than, it's gonna be
gonna be
less than
close.
3,000, it's gonna be less than 3,000, 300,000.
Nope. 305.
So 305, so our bottom line is correct.
Well, no,
Not
there's change.
305. 415.
Went up by 0.5%.
Yeah, it goes up a little bit, but that accommodates. We're
No, it goes up.
I think what?
It goes up like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, small amount.
And that accommodates. You're comfortable with that budget if we make those
Yes.
changes. So, do we need a vote? Are we in favor?
No, I would like to, after we go through some of these budgets, can we take a break? Because I'm still really not clear on these figures.
Okay.
We also have the chair of the commission here tonight.
Yeah.
I'd like to
Let's hear from the.
him. He might be a little befuddled like the rest of us.
No, we're getting there. It's confusing. There's a
That's
lot
right.
of things in flux, and it's.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen.
Don't go home yet.
Yeah.
This is something that needs to be.
Kristen, what kind of license is required to drive the bus? You need a commercial license?
F endorsement.
F endorsement?
Yes.
Do most of our public service workers fall under that category?
I don't know, to be honest. I would think school bus drivers fall under that.
I would love to find a way to continue the drug testing, since we're just liability-wise, and find another driver for that day that the person's having a drug testing. I think we could accommodate that with personnel over the course of a year to have 4 different times people get tested just to cover ourselves.
And
Okay.
the possibility of maybe not random, but I guess it is. You
Yeah,
definitely need to be
it's random, right.
But no, I would have to agree on that.
Well, I think the problem is because of its randomness. And so now you all know what it's like to get a doctor's appointment.
Agree.
So at
Right,
the last
right.
minute, you need to go to, and all of a sudden you can't go. It's sometimes I know from my own experience, sometimes it's a month away before you can get another appointment.
Well, somebody had a doctor's appointment this Thursday, and the doctor canceled, and now they can't get in till August.
I think, you know, balancing those two interests, and, you know, I appreciate, you know, Don, what you're saying, and Candace, it's a concern for me too. But,
And again, with our part-time drivers, they're, you know, they are part-time, and I thought I just had two, you know, great candidates, and thought they were going through all the paperwork, and one called this week and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it just took something else." So it is hard to get drivers and to have, you know, somebody to come in last minute.
yeah, the
I mean, it's
disruption to
possible.
schedule,
It's just-
I think, is a really serious issue, especially, you know, when it's doctor's appointments. It's not like going shopping. You could postpone, you know, going grocery shopping. But you know, if you have an appointment that took 6 months to get, and now because you know, you're unlucky and your driver ends up with a random drug test, that's a serious issue. So I guess, you know, our problem is to balance the benefit of having random drug testing against the detriment of seniors that to have doctor's appointments that are hard to come by, and disrupting that and maybe having them miss the appointment. So,
I mean, they go
it's a
through,
point.
they are all fingerprinted, and they all do go through a sex offender check as well.
Could you leave the $400 in the budget at this time, and then see if we can work out the details? And then if we want to do that, we can simply reduce it. And I'd like to also, do you have any backup drivers? In other words,
So currently, we have 3, and one is in the process of finishing up his F endorsement.
Which is a process in itself.
6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, it takes a while to do that.
So my question is, if there was, you know, a morning cancellation, do you have a backup driver that could be called in?
So it's been working out because we have 3. So we have 2 buses. So we have, you know, two part-time on the road, and then one is always on call. We're really lucky. We have great drivers.
Yes, you
So they usually can make it in.
I'm glad to hear that.
The only thing I
Yes.
was going to say about missing doctor's appointments is that, you know, if you miss certain doctor's appointments, I mean, they'll charge you up to $100 or something.
Right.
You know, and so
Sure.
that's,
Yeah.
you know, and that's
Right.
a lot of money for somebody to spend when you've missed your appointment, and now you've got to go back and again, and, you know,
Right.
wait for your medical treatment.
And we do have dial-a-ride too, and that's 24 rides, but it's only 24, and that's just one way, so it's 12 round trips, so that goes fast.
Yeah. No, I would have to agree. I mean, I simply am listening to, you know, all the arguments for sure. It's just, I think, you know, when you get down to it, if there's some way that you can continue, I think it would be great. And to be safe, it's unfortunate.
Mike? Thank you.
So we have some proposed figures. Do we want? Let's wait to hear.
Okay.
The chair.
Yes, my name is Michael Bekich, Hope Street, Niantic. I am the chairperson of the Senior Commission. Rookie. It's a big change of. It's been a big year of transition for us really this year, with of course Kristen coming on to replace Kathy, who left after almost 30 years, 30 years of service. I replaced, again, somebody had served for a long time, John Rittner, who's also our superintendent of schools. So, not so much for Kristen. Kristen's done a great job. Kristen's got experience. For me, the only thing I experience is the age itself, quite frankly. So I'm kind of the rookie when it comes to that. What I'd like to do is, first of all, 2 points I'd like to make. On the random drug testing, since that was brought up, my personal opinion, and I think I could speak for the board, is I think I would like to see it stay in place because the safety of our members, the people on these buses, they need to be assured. I mean, we know that our drivers are good. We know our drivers won't drive impaired, etc. But I think they need the assurance of knowing that that's the situation. So if it's left on, I certainly can support that. A couple other things I just wanted to say is, first of all, one of the things that Kristen noted was we're at 31% right now for our senior population that fits. What I think is very important, and Kristen and I talked about this before, and I think we brought it up at one of the other meetings before this, is that right now the town population, about 50% of our population is 50 years and older. So what's important, as Kristen had noted, is going forward, our population will probably age. Because of science and everything else, our elderly are living longer, so our population and our needs from our from our senior certainly will be extended. So I just want to kind of put that out there for the future as something to think about. The rest of it is two other quick things. Number one is that when we talk about monies that come in here, I really have to applaud Kristen for going after grants. We've been very successful in grants this year. So yes, our budget is up, but we also brought in a lot of new money that I think that doesn't show up here, but it shows up in the programming and the things that we want to do on the senior community. Last but not least, I'd just like to thank, I see Jennifer, our new employee here. I see John, one of our drivers here, and of course Eileen from our board. And I'd like to thank them for being here to support Kristen, and thank especially Eileen for taking me under her wing to get through this first year. So that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Okay, so as this is my ex officio and has been for many years, I'm and also a user of the services, particularly when my husband was very ill. To think about some of these things, it's not just about the hours of the bus driver. If you think about taking one client who has to use the handicap van, you have to get them into the van, get them strapped in, get them seated safely. Then, of course, when they get to the doctor's appointment or something, get them out of the van, do the same thing in reverse to get back. It takes a bus driver an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's not just like hop on the bus and go. And I think that for many years, this budget has been under budgeted. If you look at the services that are provided for the younger population, there are 2 late buses that run every single day, activity buses from the high school and the middle school for activities. There are all of the athletic field trips, which I don't begrudge, but now we're nickel and diming part-time drivers. And I think that this is a budget that we've got to take a very serious look at for next year and increasing it. The National Health Institute has just come out with a study on the effects of loneliness on the senior population. And if you can imagine, I cannot imagine it, living at home, either by yourself or with another person, you have no car, and you live in this town. Where the heck do you go? You've got to either hope that there's a neighbor that can drive you someplace, and certainly you can't go anyplace on the weekend and use the senior services because there's no bus transportation. And so I think that for many years this budget has been under budgeted, and I think that it's ridiculous that we're nickel and diming this compared to what we provide for the older population compared to what we provide for the younger. So, in my opinion, this budget should be doubled what it is. But I think that's something for all of us to work on for our next term, or for the next budget cycle. That's it.
Thank you, Roseanne. I appreciate your insight. I think what we did, though, was we tried to adjust our figures to what was proposed by the director, and I think largely we've accommodated your request. Am I right? If we adopted your figures, I think we worked things out, didn't we?
I think, is that question to Kristen?
Yeah, Kristen, do you feel that, making the changes that we just made, that is consistent with the budget that you proposed to us?
Before you answer that question, can I just do the caveat? And first I want to thank Roseanne for her comments.
Yes.
Is the 400 going to remain in the budget? Because I would like to see it remain in the budget for the random drug testing.
Sounds to me like that's the consent. Am I right? Is that the consensus, or how do we feel about
Well, I
that?
wanted to be sure, that's
Yeah.
all.
Let's poll it.
Okay.
Don, how do you
John,
feel? I
how do
think
you
you're
feel?
Absolutely.
in favor.
Absolutely.
Okay, I am absolutely in favor of keeping the $400 in your budget
Yeah.
for the
What do you think?
random drug testing.
I guess I look at it this way. I'm not as concerned about the money as I am that you're gonna disrupt the service.
Right.
So if there could be a guarantee that somebody who has a doctor's appointment can get to that doctor's appointment if there is random drug testing. So, I'm not trying not to answer, but so that's kind of where I stand on it.
So that's a great comment. Could I ask a question? That way we can maybe help. So granted, you can't guarantee anything, and neither could I or anybody else. However, in the past, in the history, how many times has that actually happened? Has it happened often where you've had a random drug test and, you know, a doctor's appointment has been canceled? Because the truth is yes, when you have doctor's appointments, you know, you have to keep them and you could be charged and it very well could be an issue. So I guess my question is, how much of an issue has that truly been?
So is it okay if I address, one of my bus drivers is actually here?
Perfect.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, I was.
John?
Well, they call in sick periodically too, right?
So,
If
that's
you don't
okay.
mind coming up, and thank you so much, Don.
Thank you. We're not trying to give you a hard time.
Yeah, no, not at all, not at all. No.
No, John Hallisey, and I live in town. This random drug testing, it doesn't take you to a doctor's office. Usually it's random test, and I've been random tested many times because I held a CDL
Yeah.
in my former position at CLMP. And we just go to the town garage. If they have it out there that day, we walk in, you either get drug tested or you get alcohol.
Okay,
You're in and out.
okay,
And if you got to pee in the cup, sometimes you got to wait.
I got
But
it.
it's not a doctor's visit. It's not going to take 2 hours. You just run in and you're out.
Just from your perspective, if you don't mind me asking, do you think that it's an important factor and to keep, or yay or nay?
Personally, I think it is.
Yes.
I mean, I
appreciate-
drove trucks for the power company for years, and we would random test it all the time, whether it be at Millstone or at CLMP and Myrock Avenue. And it was just a normal thing for everybody. And if you don't know this, if you're in an accident and the vehicle gets towed, you have to be drug tested.
Right.
That's the law.
Yes. I thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Hopefully that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so I guess I would.
So
say-
keep it in.
I would say keep it in.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, they're
Yeah.
not missing a whole day of work and disrupting
Okay.
everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I had concerns about, the disruption to the schedule. It sounds to me like it's workable and
Okay.
it's worthwhile, and also certainly from a liability point, there's no question about it that that's important. So I would vote in favor of keeping it in.
Okay, thank you.
So you had stated or mentioned that and asked if they got what they had asked for in the budget with the modifications that we've made. And yes, they did get what they asked for, but they're used to asking for nothing. Their budget is based on what they had before, and they're just used to asking for the minimum instead of what we should be providing. That's it.
Okay. Jason, any comments?
No.
Okay.
Did
So,
Jason and Roseanne, did they vote?
Have we put a motion on the table?
No, I thought we were saying whether
We're doing
we
a
agreed.
consensus.
I have no comment.
Oh, you do, okay.
so I guess at this point, should we have Kevin consolidate these figures, and then we can still deliberate later on about the numbers. But this way, we'll have the latest figures on one one schedule. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
So should we do that? I'm in favor of doing that. I don't know how the others feel.
I'm
Yeah,
in favor.
That sounds good, yeah.
Okay, so then, if you could do that, Kevin, for us.
Right here.
It's already done. Okay, great. All right, and then we'll just, when we go to deliberate, we'll get updated schedules.
So just to let everyone know that
Yeah.
since the first selectmen's budgets are published online, I won't make changes to those. The changes will show up in the Board of Selectmen proposed budget changes.
Okay.
So if anyone's online or any other department heads want to review their budget, the budgets are on the finance page. So I've made changes to that column K, the Board of Selectmen proposed.
Right.
So that's where we made the changes, so we can, so everyone understands.
So that's
we're making these
consistent with what
changes.
we just talked about?
Correct. Yep. Because now the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen is looking at the budgets. Now we're in the third column there to make changes.
Right.
Perfect.
The Board of Selectmen.
Yep. The Board of Selectmen. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you,
Great.
Kevin.
Okay,
Thank
thank you, Kevin. All right. Anything further on Commission on Aging?
Before we proceed, I noticed that we have 6 more of these to do. The last one took an hour, and we have a public hearing starting at 7.
I know.
Do we think we should maybe table a few of these, or find another way to arrange the evening?
How
Yeah,
fast
do
can
you
we
want to,
go?
maybe we can get, let's,
See where we can go.
yeah, see if we can get through Parks and Rec and then see where we're at, and then maybe we'll have to,
The last 3 are me, so we can always,
do some other time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or I can say later. It's not a big
Yeah.
deal.
Tonight, later,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Whatever we can do. Whatever we have to do.
Okay, so then why don't we turn our attention to Parks and Rec, 421.
Do you have a
Thank you.
PowerPoint? Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right.
I didn't print out the big one, so if you've got
Thank you, Jerry.
conditions, I can.
Jerry, did you email it to me by any chance?
Thank you.
Thank you.
No. Okay.
Great, thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Kristen.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jerry Locken, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm joined here tonight by several members of the Parks and Rec Commission. Our Chairman, Rob Tukey, former Chairman, Tom Beebe, Todd Donovan, and we also have a couple members of our Darrell Pond Subcommittee here, Bruce Dessinger and Chuck Meebus.
Welcome, everybody.
So, try to be respectful of time here. I know that I heard the comments.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to imply that I was not.
No, I
not
know.
Patient. I fully
No.
support what you guys are doing. I'm here all night.
But right. So anyway, just to quickly give you an overview of Parks and Recreation, we have 3 major sources of funding. We have the general fund that provides a lot of our operating budget for our parks operation and full-time staff. And we have a special revenue fund. A special revenue fund is a fund that is paid for not by taxes, but by the fees that people pay to participate in programs or to use the beach or to go to community events. So those things are all supported by revenue that those activities bring in. So the beach, we pay for your parking pass and we staff it with lifeguards. And same with community events or Parks and Rec programs. The fees that we charge to people to do those programs, we use to pay the supplies and materials and the instructors and such. And then we also have capital programs, we have parks in town that we need capital investment in, and we also have a fleet of vehicles and equipment that we use to maintain those parks and properties. So with that, Parks and Recreation is a major contributor to the quality of life in East Lyme. I mean, I can't think of hardly anybody in town that isn't touched by Parks and Rec in some way. Whether it's a parent down at Brydebrook Park, somebody enjoying a concert at the beach, going to celebrate East Lyme, taking a Parks and Rec program, you name it, walking the boardwalk. Parks and Rec touches everybody in town. It's a part of the quality of life, and we need to invest in that, and we need to continue to make East Lyme this great place that we all love. So with that, in the operating budget is, Kevin, could you potentially pull that up, 421?
There really isn't any significant changes in here. We did request the addition of a full-time maintainer to help us maintain our properties. But, you know, in our budget discussions, that was removed. So we did put in a modest increase in two line items. One is seasonal labor, and the other one is the increases in the maintenance of parks and park field maintenance. Yep. So those are some modest increases in those things. We've actually been strapped in trying to maintain our parks. And the fact is that our operation is growing and continually grows. We have Darrow Pond that's come on board. Our parks people maintain not only parks in the town, but we've also been assigned responsibilities for maintaining Town Hall, areas around the community center, historic properties like Samuel Smith House, Brookside Farm. You know, there's a lot of stuff that we do in support of Main Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. All those kinds of things are not necessarily park and rec operations, but we support those, and those are always continuing to grow. So that's the reason that we have increased cost and we have increased wages in our seasonal and full-time staff. So I would say any increase in our full-time staff is due to those union negotiations, as Kevin mentioned earlier. The folks in the union, which is just about everybody in the full-time staff, is a member of the union. So those increases are kind of built in for us. In the special revenue fund, you don't see anything. There is no figure in front of the Board of Selectmen tonight for the special revenue fund, but the challenge that we have there in the special revenue fund to maintain what we're doing is to build the fund balance. Right now our fund balance is low, and we're working to build that back up. The COVID pandemic was particularly hard on the special revenue fund. As you can imagine, we have money that we bring in. During COVID, we were not bringing in money, and yet we had to, expenses we had to pay regardless. So that hurt our fund balance. So we've got probably several years ahead of us where we're going to try to rebuild fund balance. In terms of capital projects, and I'm sure we'll talk about those individually, but in general, I think everybody, I hope, is aware that McCook Seawall took an absolute beating over this winter. We have a capital project to repair that. There's also capital projects for a beach erosion plan, some improvements to Peretz Park at Brydebrook, some lights and field renovations and fixing a septic system. And as the members of the Darrow Pond Subcommittee are here tonight, we actually have some funding requests for Phase 1 of implementing the Darrow Pond Master Plan that was presented to the Board of Selectmen in December. And then finally, a small park improvement program proposal to do some smaller type projects in various parks. And beyond that, we have several vehicles that are in our capital request. We have a request for one additional vehicle, and the others are replacement vehicles. So, and in terms of the new vehicle, we actually talked with our insurance agents, and we have a lot of personal use of personal vehicles by staff members for special events, beach operations, things like that, that we really should be having those folks drive town vehicles. If they're driving their personal vehicles, that opens us up to some risks that is best not is best avoided. And I guess with that, I guess I'll happily answer any questions about the budget request here, either capital or operational.
So I have a question on the fund balance. How do you go about bringing money in to that fund balance? What are some just examples of some of the things
Okay,
that
so
you do?
the fund balance is, you can look at it as kind of the savings account. It's the, if at the end of the year, if we bring in $500,000 and we spend $400,000, we add $100,000 to our fund balance, which means the following year we've built our cushion. You know, if something catastrophic were to happen. Conversely, if we have $500,000 in our budget, when that's what we bring in, and we spend $550,000, our fund balance decreases by that. We have the cumulative fund balance for the fund is something we should not go below zero. I mean, in any given year, we may operate in the red, but our total fund balance, that's the accumulation over year after year after year, kind of that savings account, doesn't go below zero. You know, so that's something that, you know, our finance director would be, you know, we've had many discussions on that. We need to manage to our revenue. So that's the challenge that our Parks and Rec department has. If we bring in $500,000, we need to spend less than $500,000.
Okay, and just one other question. How many town vehicles do you have in your fleet?
I guess the vehicles, I would say they're in parks, we have 5 pickups and we have 1 SUV. But that does not, and if that's what you mean by vehicles, I mean, there are tractors, lawnmowers,
No, I mean
other kinds of,
vehicles that
so
you're on.
yes, five pickup truck type vehicles and 1 SUV.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question. So you were saying that the Parks and Rec, they maintain the parks and then the historic properties and then the town building. Now, when you're talking about the town buildings, just correct me if I'm wrong, is that the domain of Public Works, or do you guys kind of split, or how does that work?
Right. You know, the actual inside the buildings, we don't do anything inside the buildings. But, you know, if you're talking about mowing or taking care of the leaves or putting mulch down, those are things that our Parks and Rec staff is you know, arguably in the best position to. You know, it's not a park, but it is something that our staff members do. They're good at doing. They have the skills, the equipment, the knowledge necessary to do it. So it makes sense to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I was reading something here. It says office coverage for beach pass sales, 6 weeks times 25 hours times
Yep.
18,
Yep.
maybe dollars per hour. I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah.
So my question is, I know that a lot of things right now are like computerized.
Yep.
So why do we need that extra coverage? Can you explain that?
Well, we sell thousands of beach passes, and that the sales of those beach passes are highly focused in a particular time frame. You know, in the spring there when people are buying them. So a lot of people, in fact, maybe even a majority of people purchase them online, but still a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. They need to provide proof of ownership of the vehicle and that type of thing. And, you know, doing that online for some people, uploading documents, those kinds of things can be a struggle for people. So it's not as simple as, you know, some other transactions may be. So, yeah, they do tend to be labor intensive.
So I guess my question is, you're usually open, what, I don't know what the hours are, 8 to 5?
Yeah,
or
we're open
something?
town hall hours. Correct.
And so then, when you have the beach passes, do you stay open later, or like how?
No, we still maintain our office hours, but, you know, we're doing the regular work of the day, plus we have an influx of, you know, so we'll have, you know, maybe 2 people processing beach passes instead of only 1.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one more question.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
Let's find my notes here. Equipment maintenance, it says routine maintenance for vehicles, lawnmowers, tractors, trailers. Who does the maintenance? Like, do you send it out? Like, do you have a third-party vendor do it, or
Yes, yes, and yes. A lot of the maintenance of the park and rec equipment is performed by the full-time park and rec maintainers. There are things that we do rely on the public works mechanics to do, and then there's even another level if it's a very specific repair of repairing a hydraulic cylinder or something like that that you need to send to a shop to do. that's something we would actually contract out. But the vast majority of the routine day-to-day maintenance of the equipment is done by the park staff. And then, if it's a little bit more involved, the mechanics at the Public Works shop would help. And then last resort would be sending it out to a business.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm curious about part-time seasonal work.
Say that again?
The part-time seasonal work?
Yes.
Is that to offset full-time employees?
Yes and no. There is, most of the Parks and Rec work, as you can imagine, is focused on those growing months of the year. So when we need more people in the summer than we do in the winter. So there's a happy medium between having the right number of full-time staff who are on staff all the time to get the work done, and then you supplement those with the additional seasonal staff when the situation calls for. As I mentioned earlier, I think there is a justification for additional full-time staff, but given the realities that the town budget is in earlier budget discussions, it was determined that we'll postpone with that, and we'll increase our seasonal staff a bit to kind of start to address the issue. It's not a full fix, and I've had that discussion with Dan. It's not ideal for us, but it's something we're going to work with, and we're going to provide the best level of service that we can provide, given the resources that the budget calls for.
Thank you.
Are we going to handle capital projects in this part, or are we going to do that separately?
I think we can, why don't we address this, and then when we're done with questions on the actual budget, then we can turn to capital projects. So I'll make sure there aren't any other questions, Jerry, on this portion of the budget. If I don't want to rush anybody.
Okay.
You good? Yep. Then why don't we turn to capital projects then? And we have the long sheet for it's culture and recreation. So, probably the second or third page. It's on the second page. Halfway down?
Yeah,
Second
got
page?
it.
Okay. So, Jerry, do you want to review what the your requests are, and we'll...
So I guess maybe let's, if you'd like, we could start with the vehicles, if that's okay, or vehicles and equipment, I guess.
Yep.
There are 5 items in there. As I mentioned, there's a new vehicle proposed, and the other ones are replacement vehicles. So just to let everybody know how the replacement of vehicles goes. The vehicles and equipment that we buy have a particular lifespan. For a pickup, that's about 10 years. For a big tractor, it might be 15 or 20 years. For a zero-turn mower, it might be 7 or 8 years. So that's kind of, you can see there's some useful life figures on there, and you can see in our pickup trucks there that we have a number of pickup trucks listed there. So when they get to be 10 years old, that's when we tend to replace them. The advantage to doing that is, the older your vehicles are, the more that they're down, the more that they're in the shop, the more that you have to pay to maintain and whatnot. So there's a happy medium in there, and there's a system involved with this. So every piece of equipment that you see in here is at the end of its useful life and should be replaced to maintain the functionality of the equipment and to maintain our efficient operation. If we don't choose to replace these things, I am going to struggle mightily to either stick within that maintenance budget that we just talked about to fix those things, or to provide a lower level of service when we don't have the equipment that's online that's ready to do the work. So that's the struggle. So in here, I guess I can answer any question about any particular piece of those 5 pieces of equipment: the SUV, the pickup truck, the ATV that's used at the beach, the workman type utility vehicle that operates in parks, and a landscaping trailer that we use to haul our equipment around town.
Now, if I may, you did have a request in for the vehicle for beach and recreation staff,
Yep.
and in our deliberations and talking, I did reduce that. I took that out.
Oh, you did? Okay.
35,000 that we reduced.
Okay.
And, you know, I don't know if there is some other vehicle that might become available. You know, it doesn't have to be a new, you know, Explorer. It could be something, maybe there's some other vehicle coming offline in some other area that would be adequate for the beach staff to use for getting from to one place to another. So I'm certainly not opposed to trying to search out a vehicle that might be coming up that could be used in that way. But, you know, given the realities of our budget, I see it sort of as a luxury at this point. The other ones, though, I understand the need, and it's absolutely legitimate.
For the Polaris ATV, is this an additional vehicle?
It's a replacement. It's, the ATV is what we use at the beach. As you know, Cheney Beach is about a mile long. If lifeguards have to respond on one end of the beach or the other, that's a vehicle that is used to get lifeguards to the point of emergency quickly, used daily in the summer.
So this is a replacement for?
It is a replacement for an existing vehicle that I think, what's the year, 2013? Yeah, you can, yeah.
And that can traverse it can actually get up onto the boardwalk itself, if it had to.
Hypothetically, it could go on the boardwalk, but it's primarily used to go on the sand.
Right.
I
mean,
think-
we did have an emergency situation last year where it was hard to get to an individual that was in the middle of the boardwalk.
Yep, it could do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the vehicles, equipment? Then why don't we move to the parks maintenance?
Okay, so obviously I don't know if there's any questions on the McCook seawall. I think the consensus from our Park and Rec Commission was covered in a meeting last month, and the members of the commission agreed that the best course of action, rather than trying to do something quickly with funds that aren't readily in hand, to try to do something quickly, was to ask for funding in this budget and do the work following this season. We're rolling the dice a little bit that we're not, that the temporary repair will hold throughout this season, and then repair it the right way following the season. So that's the request for the McCook seawall.
And I know we've gone over this before. Maybe, Kevin, if you could explain, just so everybody understands, the difference between 20-year bonding and cash capital.
I could do that. Real quick, I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
In discussions just yesterday and today with the engineering department, that 300,000 might go up to 400,000, depending on how robust that wall has to be and if we have to wrap kind of around the edge.
Yeah.
So 300 was the initial placeholder. The town engineer's back from military leave, so he's looking at this a little deeper. So that number might jump up. I didn't put the 400,000 in yet because
Yeah.
it was still kind of beginning parts of the discussion, but just if we come back and I'm asking to put an additional 100,000 in the Board of Selectmen adjustment column, that's why. So,
And we will do what we need to do to protect our beach and the wall.
yep.
Thank you.
And then, so I'll keep everyone apprised of that. And
Yes.
and if that number does go up to 400,000, maybe we invite Mr. Close up here and
Yeah, that'd be great.
or Mr.
So
Bravo.
this line item, we're not anticipating any outside agency help for this expenditure? In other words, any money from
There's
the
no grant,
state?
it's on us. Yeah,
Yeah, our insurance company also denied the claim.
yeah.
So did they get any proposals yet then? Is that what, or not?
I don't know how far along they're in the. I don't know how far they're along they're in that process.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not. I don't believe they got proposals because that's gonna go to a formal bid.
Okay, that's what,
So
okay.
sorry.
Having said that, this points out another aspect of the budget. One of the new initiatives in this budget is the coastal coast contingency reserve. And, you know, we're not putting a lot of money into it, I think about 25,000, but it's to at least have some sort of a fund to help us in future situations like this, that we can draw money from to repair a wall, because this won't be the end of it, unfortunately. We're going to see other events, and we need to start thinking ahead and be prudent in that way.
And just to piggyback on that point,
Yep.
the Coastal Resiliency Plan / Fund was spearheaded really in Brantford, started the first one along the shoreline, and now the S&P rating agency and Moody's are requiring shoreline towns to adopt something similar to this if you want an increase or maintain the bond rating you have. So this year we're looking at the Coastal Resiliency Plan to create into a fund and then start funding money going into that, so there would be a reserve. So that's what the 25, we came up with the 25 this year. That's what we would have needed to build the wall, to fix it. So we figured, okay, if something happens like this again, we'd have, 25,000 set aside to do the initial, repairs, emergency repairs. If
What
they have
was
to be
the
done.
reason for the insurance company denial? Of
Um,
this partial payment?
It's just not on our list of infrastructure that's covered.
So that's on us in the future to get a list of these things?
No, it won't. You might have to get special insurance for it, but it's not in the liability auto property. I could send. I'll share the denial letter with you, and what their reasoning was. Sorry, I got off on a tangent there.
No.
Just real quickly, so what Dan was talking about, the different financing options we have. So we have a 20-year bond, 10-year bond, 5-year financing, aka a lease, and then paid in cash. So in the past, historically, the town of East Lyme has leased, $1 million, $1.5 million a year, and really, we lease it, we bond. This year, I've proposed to get rid of the leasing. Right now, leases are over 4.5%, 5%. So in the past, when I earlier this week, I did a little analysis of the leases. Initially, we were getting leases for $30,000 a year for interest payments. Now, the latest lease we have is $139,000 a year for an interest payment. So it's night and day different here. So now, I think it behooves us to move to cash capital, which means we take out, we budget for cash from these capital projects. Currently, we have $499,000. I'm proposing $750,000. If you look at the bottom in the black, we have $2.745 million. So there's a discrepancy here of about $2 million between what I consider we should bond for or we should cash capital versus prior years. So does that kind of just give you a little? I just wanted to touch on that and not commandeer Park and Rec.
In simple terms, it's you're going out to dinner and you either pull out a lot of cash to pay for dinner or you put it on your MasterCard, and that's what we've been doing. And we're trying to get back, at least starting the process to get back, wean us off of using these short-term loans, really, to pay for things that we really ought to be trying to pay for with cash. And this will benefit us down the road. It'll improve our position. These are long-term goals, but they need to be started somewhere, and we're going to try to start them with this budget.
So we have currently, just to so everyone knows the situation we're currently in, we have $6 million of bond anticipation notes, essentially a one-year note, a promise to pay. This year we have to bond that. This August we have to bond that $6 million. On top of the $2 million we took out for the land acquisition. So before we borrow, proposed $13 million. Before we touch that $13 million, the town has to bond $8 million between bonds and bond anticipation notes before we add any of that $13 million. We currently have over $70 million of debt. So we're starting to approach 100% debt load to our operating budget. Operating budget's $86 million. So it's just something we have to
But we're trying to
be
get away
cognizant
from that.
of.
We're trying to reduce that.
We are trying to reduce it. So ideally, we have, I think I did it up here in the, let's see, right
I
here,
didn't
perfect
mean to
example.
digress in the middle of your, but this is a good.
So the road reserve, the town every year, we put $850,000 aside to maintain the roads. I look at this as, you lost a shingle on your house or something, you're going to take out a second mortgage to do this little repair to your house. Because this is, every year we're putting $850,000 in the roads to rebuild the roads. We're bonding that. At the end of 10 years, we just bonded $8.5 million to maintain the roads. Really, we should be transitioning that to paid in cash. Because now, not only are we now bonding that, we're paying interest, and now it's not 1 or 2% interest, it's 4.5% interest. So really, we should be transitioning here to cash capital. So my proposal is to start moving our projects from bonds to cash. So I did a third of the road reserve, which is kind of our largest, normal ticket item we know every year we're going to take out in the capital projects. That's the first one I want to move from bonds to cash. And that'll, that itself will save us $750,000 a year bonding. But it comes at, an increase to the mill rate.
It's going to be a little ugly at first, but we have to do it, and at some point, someone has to take it on. And we're going to take some things on in this administration, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
So we're going to do
When we
it.
first started bonding, the rate was very reasonable, and it was much better, more efficient than having people take that amount of cash out of
Sure.
their pockets.
Correct,
so they
yeah.
keep the
At that
tax
time,
rates
yeah.
down.
Yeah.
But now
At that
it's come home to roost.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Kevin.
sorry,
Just
Jerry.
get back.
Go ahead.
So
So,
right back down here. All right, right
Yeah.
back to
capital.
park maintenance.
Okay, so the next item on the list there, it looks like the erosion control plan for McCook's hole in the wall. So in addition to the seawall being damaged, we had a number of rain events this summer that actually did some severe erosion of the beach and erosion of McCook Park and things like that. So we're looking at creating a plan that's going to allow us to improve the landscaping or make modifications to the the runoff channels and things like that to control that erosion better. So it's spending $50,000 to find the right way of maintaining the beach so we don't run into additional huge issues down the road. The next item, the park improvement program. That is something that every year there's always something in parks that needs to be done. Whether it's a fence, new soccer goals for the park, or new grills, new picnic tables, all those kinds of things. Every time there's something, repair a path, repair a playscape, there's always something to fix in parks. And this is something that I intend to ask for every year, to have money allocated for us to do those smaller type projects, not build a whole new field or anything like that, but to fix what needs to be fixed in parks. So that's the park improvement program. And
We did trim that a little. We gave you 50% of that, but hopefully you'll be able to repair what you can repair with that.
Yep.
And we'll try to focus on some of these
Sure.
other areas.
Sure.
More importantly, I think on the erosion control, that's going to be key.
Yep.
And we didn't want to touch that, so.
okay, and
I did notice
Go
one
ahead.
of the items under there, under the Peretz Park at Brydebrook, was a septic.
okay, so yeah, you're jumping down to number 3 there.
Yes.
Yep. So Brydebrook Park has need for several repairs. The septic system at Brydebrook hasn't been operating optimally. So right now we're in the process of assessing that and potentially having to do some pretty significant repairs. Those of you who have been down at Brydebrook Park know that the restrooms down there are old. There's only 2 toilets in the men's and 2 in the women's. And when you have hundreds or thousands of people in Brydebrook Park, you can imagine that system gets overwhelmed pretty easily. So yes, that is absolute. We need to address that issue. This time around, we chose to do the septic system, to create a septic system that's going to handle the use. There's also, you can see a project there that's listed to redo the restrooms, but that's, we decided to push that off a bit, to add restroom capacity at Brydebrook Park. So more than 2 toilets per, for the, women and the men. So that's an eventual goal.
Does septic come under the purview of water and sewer?
No, it's in the park. It's totally enclosed within the park. Yeah.
It's not part of this.
Yep.
Jerry, can we please go back up to 2 where we
Okay.
digressed, and it's Darrow Pond enhancement?
Sure. And we do have several members of the Darrow Pond Committee here again tonight. The members of the Darrow Pond Subcommittee got together and they actually went through the whole master plan that they created over several years and decided which items were the highest priority and which ones were not, and which ones we could push off. So they did come up with phase 1 and phase 2. What you see listed there is phase 1. So 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D are all phase 1. And you can see out of phase 1 that the decision's been made to include the disc golf course, which was one of the most highly requested items at Darrow Pond. And you can also see that educational signs and things like that were also included to kind of highlight the natural elements and to encourage the proper use of the park. So those 2 things have been included, and it looks like the water sampling area and the education center, the aquatic education center things are, other phase 1 things that are kind of being on hold. So I guess we'll call that phase 1A or phase 1 next year. But
Okay. Before
yeah.
you continue, I just want to make a suggestion that if you look at grants, there might be something there that could be utilized to offset that cost.
Correct.
Out of the 1 or the 2 or the 3. I just want to
Correct.
put that out.
And thank you for bringing it up, Candace. The one that you see there, the trail construction, $360,000. We're actually right now working with, Bruce is working on a project along with Rich and Gary Gashel downstairs from planning to submit an application for a recreation trails grant that would fund a majority of that project. So we are looking at alternative funding sources, and that's why we agreed that taking the trail funds out of this request was the right thing to do.
Great. Thank you
Appreciate your
so
help
much
with
for
that,
doing
Jerry.
all of that. Yeah.
And hopefully some of those grants come
Yep.
through, and then maybe it'd be a little more palatable.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm sure we could supplement that somehow.
Agreed.
Great. And then
So yeah, and I'm kind of looking through the flag there, but I think I see the might want field renovations. Is that the second one? Yep. So there are some significant issues with a couple of the fields that we need to address. So field renovations is something that was included. The expansion and renovation of the restrooms is something that we are choosing to push back. And there are several lighting initiatives that should happen to provide adequate lighting at the park. Some of the lights are there, but they are extremely old and don't really do the job. They're much better products now, LEDs that use a lot less electricity, lower operating costs over the, so you have all those savings and things like that. But included here are lights for the new pickleball courts and the basketball court. So that would be kind of the first kind of lighting. There are lights on the basketball court now, but they aren't adequate and they don't kind of do the job. So we'll replace the ones on the basketball court and add them on the pickleball courts right next to it. That's what we'll do this year, and then we'll be coming back looking for the new lights on the softball field and baseball field and those other fields in future years.
and these will be LED lighting. They'll be more efficient, more reliable.
Yeah, and they'll be able to turn them on and off with a phone and program them, and all kinds of money-saving
So we're moving in the right
features.
direction on
Oh, yeah.
those.
Yep.
Quick question. It says just 3E, soccer field retrofit. What does it mean?
So retrofit means the existing poles actually on Kessler Field are actually the newer ones, and they are metal poles. They can retrofit LED lights onto those, so they would just be replacing the fixtures. On the other fields, we have the old creosote-soaked telephone poles that are hold these big light fixtures that are as big as a bathtub. Really old, those halogen things that take 15 minutes to warm up, those kinds of things. Those would be the poles, and everything would be replaced on those, but not on Kessler with the big metal things. Those are fine. So it's just a retrofit in that case.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
another suggestion on grants, Jared, just for that, because you might find some significant grant funding to help with the lighting.
Indeed.
Anything, let's see, pretty much, anything else on the capital plan?
We do have members of the Darrell Pond Subcommittee invited here this evening. Did they want an opportunity to speak on anything?
Did you want to speak, Bruce?
I didn't have a speech prepared.
Okay, no.
Okay.
You don't
They're
have
just
to
asking.
talk,
They're
yeah,
asking.
Yeah, something,
I just didn't want anyone to show
Yeah.
up thinking they were going to get an opportunity to speak and
Yeah.
then get shut
Yeah.
down.
I think we have a gym.
Bruce?
if you could come to the podium, please.
I'm Bruce Dassinger, resident for 50.
And if you would just identify yourself for the record.
Bruce Dassinger, 12 Stonecliff Drive, Connecticut, resident for about 58 years in town.
Welcome, David.
I think with Darrell Pond, we have a natural gym, GEM, as well as something that people can enjoy like disc golf. But it has already, we have in town, and people are trying to make things like New England cottontail rabbit population. The state has a program, all the New England states have a program to maintain and create habitat for New England cottontail. So we luckily here in Niantic at East Lyme have such a colony. It's been studied by the state and is inspected. They go collect rabbit pellets and see if those species, that particular species of rabbit is still there, and they've established where they are. So we have a wildlife habitat there which we're preserving for those animals, and we're going to instruct people educational-wise. It's to maintain biodiversity. It is good to maintain that about 26-acre part of Darrell Pond. Also, along with that, I'm a bird watcher, and there's some birds that are having problems all over the country in that area too, because they depend on the brushland for their nesting. They don't nest in the high trees or anything. They nest in the bushes. So that's there too, and people use that. We have a woodcock population there, which during April and March, people come there to actually see and to hear. They will see many of them because they do their stuff at about sundown. And so people come on there, groups of people just to observe that and to listen for that. So it's a gem of a place. It has all these habitats in it. It has wetlands, it has full mature forest, it has young forest, it has brush habitat. It has a meadow internally. So those habitats, people enjoy seeing them. And so I think people now, because of all the problems we have in the world especially, need to get out in nature. It's been proven that it's healthy mentally and physically. We all need that because we were raised that way through time, the last 100,000 or more years, etc. So I think we have something great there. We can enhance it there so people can use it and enjoy it. So that's all I have to say.
Thank
you.
Appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah, and just to remind everybody, there were, conservation was one of our pillars, education was a pillar, and kind of, low impact recreational activity. Those are the pillars of, the master plan at Darrell Pond.
They gave an excellent presentation when they came, Jerry. They really did.
Okay. All right, are we good? Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much,
it.
Jerry.
Appreciate
Thank you, everyone.
being out late night here. Do you think we should try to get through youth and family services and maybe, or how, yeah,
Yes.
they're here, let's try to get that one done, and then
Yes.
we'll
They've been sitting
take
there
a quick
waiting.
break.
It's not that long.
And thank you for your patience.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Kicking you, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to kick you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
What's this?
This is just a break. Comparison.
Sarah Furman, I'm the Director for Youth and Family Services. As you guys know, it's a new department. We moved out from underneath Park and Rec. And our mission has stayed the same from when it was just youth services. The only thing that changed is we are now going to serve people of all ages. Our goals and objectives are to provide our residents with access to support groups, youth programs, access to state resources, substance abuse prevention and education, clinical mental health support, and family resources. For our operating budget, we have the director in there at 75, but we put a note to negotiate this with the subcommittee based on the comparisons that you have in front of you of other directors for youth service bureaus. We're also going to bring on a full-time prevention coordinator to fulfill the role that I was doing prior to becoming the director. And then we have a case manager. The case manager would be responsible for the social services. So that's help with housing, help with obtaining employment, help with food pantries, all local resources. Right now, we have to refer out to other agencies or rely on our family resource liaisons to kind of help with the social services needs of our residents. And then I want to draw your attention to the part-time seasonal labor. For our open center staff, in previous budgets, that came out of the special revenue. After meeting with Kevin and Dan, it was decided to move them up to the general fund based on the deficit that the special revenue is facing right now. And then we also have our part-time therapist. She right now is funded through ARPA funds, but that ends on June 30th. So we also moved her up to the general fund, and then we would like to bring on a second part-time therapist to help alleviate the wait list that we have faced since we brought on a counselor. Our operating expenses, a lot of this just moved over from the Park and Rec budget, split in the cost. So our telephone, cable, and internet, again, that's just split in half with Park and Rec. Dues in professional organizations, that's dues that we have always had. Again, it just came over from Park and Rec. Professional conventions and conferences, miscellaneous supplies, that's our counseling software, that is, staff uniforms. Again, all this money was under Park and Rec previously. And then our youth service programs. The supplies and services are for the programs that were already in the budget under Park and Rec. So that's National Night Out, that's our prevention materials, that is, supplies for open center, that's supplies for our preschool programs. All of that was already in the budget previously, just moved over. Contracted services, that is our instructor that we use for sitter survival. In the past, she's been contracted to do one class, and we added her in for an additional one based on need. And then wages, that is our preschool instructor. She only holds classes during the academic year, and it's twice a week. And then our 10-year projection, we hope to be fully staffed with a prevention coordinator, a part-time licensed therapist, 2 of them, a case manager, and an admin assistant, and successfully meeting the needs of our community through community outreach, social services, and youth services. Yeah.
Just a quick question. preschool instructor, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so we have a preschool instructor that does creative art for ages 2 to 4, and then she also does music and movement for ages 2 and 4.
Is that the?
It's
part
just a
of
program
therapy?
class.
It's just,
Nope, it's just to, have options for early childhood.
okay, thank you.
Are there any plans to expand that program?
Oh, I would love to. Yeah.
Not in your 10-year plan.
Yes, it's not in my 10-year plan. I should have put it in my 10-year plan, but yes.
You could make a case pretty easily because it's shown that if you spend money on programs for young people like that, you end up bringing more money into the general budget. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, in the past, they've done gym, Tots Gym. They haven't been offering that lately. Like to bring it back. There was a class called Together Time, which is more of kids coming in and building Legos, doing Play-Doh, sensory activities. So we're looking to bring all of that back, hopefully in the fall.
Just a question, aren't these activities that were going through the Park and Rec before?
Yeah, so
Okay.
after this department was established, I met with Jerry, Jack, and Mike, and we all sat down, and we went through all the programs that are being offered and had a conversation about where we felt these programs would fall under. And the preschool program, because we have parents sit in with their child, we felt like it was better served under youth and family.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So it would no longer be on the Park and Rec. So if you're looking in that brochure,
Correct.
it's not going to be there.
It's not going to be there.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Thanks. Because I was sitting there, aren't we duplicating everything? Because I look through it normally, and there's all these,
Right.
activities for young, families and kids. So, okay, thank you.
I've been learning more about the different levels of internship that you need to have before you become, a licensed clinical therapist. Has there been any thought about maybe expanding these positions using interns?
So I actually have my intern with me today. So she is a psych major, undergrad, and she started with me at the end of January, and she'll continue with me until May. And yes, would love to have other opportunities to bring other interns in. And she's from Southern.
Sarah, you've done an incredible job
Thank
with
you,
this
Candace.
committee and the movement here. You also do different programs. Do you want to touch on a little bit of the program that you are doing, that you've started doing, just to kind of give everybody an idea?
Yeah, we recently started what we call Kids Night. So it's an opportunity for parents to have a night out. They come and they drop their child or their children off. It's between 6 and 9. My open center staff run it. And we provide pizza, board games, they can watch a movie, they can play foosball, pool, just hang out with their friends. And it's for grades 1st through 8th.
Now, the money that you bring in, right, goes back into your program. So
Yes,
revenue
that's some more revenue that will come in, yes.
which is wonderful.
Yes, and we plan on holding it once a month.
Right. Now, you're also looking into grants, right? So now
Yes.
that you guys have been established, that opens you up for grants to bring in money going down. the
Correct,
line.
yes. So we are looking at grants. We need a grant writer, and I did have a conversation with Dan about that, about hiring a grant writer or using one through a contract. So there are 2 grants that I'm looking at right now. The first one is the Strategic Prevention Planning Framework Grant. And that one would have an award ceiling of up to $375. It is very competitive. 44 get awarded, so would need a grant writer for that. And then the Drug-Free Communities Grant. That one we will be eligible for when ARPA money runs out.
So are you saying 375,000?
That was for the Strategic Prevention Planning. Yes, that's the award ceiling for that grant. For the drug-free communities, the award ceiling is $125,000, and that one is good for 5 years, and then you could apply for an additional 4 years. And then we plan on doing some fundraising too.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? You know, we did have some discussions. We had to reduce some of the areas. We're trying to, do what we have to do in the short term, and then hopefully, as things move on and we see how we do next year, and we'll restore some of the areas that we had to reduce. But one of the mains was the project coordinator, secretarial administration. I know you wanted another person there, and of course, you'll have one administrator, is that right?
For right now, Arlene will fulfill that
Yeah.
spot, yeah. I know you made a cut to the second part-time therapist, which
Yeah.
we would like to continue to have the part-time therapist up to carry a caseload of 10. With the cut, they would not be able to do that, and we will continue to have this wait list and, risk having people not get services that they need.
Sarah, may I ask you, how many people are on your wait list?
12.
So you have
And
12
yes,
people on your
and
wait
some of
list.
them have been on there for up to a year. So we have started to go through to see if they are receiving services or are still interested in services.
I see. I would like the board to reconsider that cut.
Can I ask a question? So when you're doing these services, do you go through them people's medical insurance, or how does this work?
This is a free service, so it's contracted through Project Courage. I've had conversations with our part-time therapist about maybe coming on board for the town instead of being contracted. We've had conversations about maybe offering a sliding scale or even going through insurance, but that would open up to other employment, having somebody that could do the billing, the case notes, all of that. So right now, it's just a free service because a lot of our families that we're running into have Husky.
Well,
So,
that's what I was about
yeah.
to ask. Yeah, so can't they get the services through Husky then? Is that what
They
you-
can, but there's long wait lists.
There's long waits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're limited on where they can go.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, and, okay, I'm good. That's what I was-
Sarah, you mentioned you have 12 on the wait list right now. Are they numbers or are they priorities?
They go by who sends the referral in first. Our juvenile review board clients get priority. So if we have a juvenile review board client that's in need of services and they want to come to us, then they do get priority on the wait list.
Thank you.
What line item would it affect to restore? Would it be part-time seasonal or?
It would be part-time seasonal, yes.
And so what would you be looking for if we were to restore?
I have it in there for 32.
Do you want me to go through the cuts? Because I have worksheets here. We can
Okay.
talk about them.
Okay, we can,
You okay with that, Sarah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So hold on, I'm just using my little keypad here. So the cuts that were made during the first Selectmen's budget deliberations, currently ARPA is funding about $32,000 for a counselor. In this budget, it is doubling that. So in such a tough budget year, we're facing an 8% budget increase. So the first Selectman, in consultation with Ms. Furman, dropped the counseling budget to $48,000, which is still a 50% increase over the current year. So the town is absorbing $48,000 of counseling services because right now it's all paid through ARPA. Similarly, up top here, this case manager position was eliminated, and we left the full-time prevention wellness mentoring coordinator in the budget to start July 1st. So there is some optionality to, if you want to, if the board was looking for two positions, instead of, an option would be to say, okay, one could start Jan 1, one could start November 1st, things like that, to kind
so you
of
stagger
value
them.
engineer it. Yeah, and the problem is though that just creates a problem in next year's budget.
Okay.
So if
well,
we
wouldn't
if
want
we
that.
absorb half a position
want
this
that.
year, next year we have to absorb the other half position
Okay.
before we
Yeah,
add
we
anyone
wouldn't want
else.
that. Okay.
here's, knowing that, maybe it would be well if Sarah, if you could, of the 12 on that list, identify which ones are still active waiters on the list. And maybe if you could report that back to us, then that would help inform what our decision ought to be. And then when we go to deliberate towards the end of our budget process, let's remember this in our notes, and we can decide at that time.
But I think with that, though, too, Dan, is there's always going to be people on that wait list. Like, we can comb through that wait list, and I can still keep getting referrals in.
So it's going to,
Yeah, the wait list is just going to continue to grow.
So we can either consider to restore the amount of money, or even possibly consider half of restoration of the money for consideration.
those are options.
I think it's fair.
Just one more question. Who do you get referrals from?
I get them from the school, the community, sometimes the police department.
I'm so glad that that question was asked, and I'm
Yeah.
so glad because it's community based. So that's kind of where my suggestions are coming from. It's internal.
No, I get it.
It's
And-
investment.
And, you know, we created this department, and we have a responsibility to do the best we can with it,
Yeah.
within our means.
Yes.
And so, you know, Kevin had some great ideas. Maybe we
Yes.
can do, you know, start someone halfway through the year, and it'll be a problem next year, but we'll deal with it next year as best we can. So we don't have to decide that this minute, but I think, or do you want to try to decide it right now?
No.
Let's wait. and
I think
let's
it would
talk
be
about it.
pressed for time just because it's
Yeah,
5 minutes,
five
and I
up,
would
yeah.
want everyone to be comfortable
Yeah.
and willing
Yeah.
to
So
have the
Let's
conversation.
revisit
Think about
this.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then, because it's an important decision, so.
Okay.
Are there any other comments on this part of the budget at this point? Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
did a
Sarah.
great
You know,
job,
it's good
Sarah.
work you're doing. I'm really happy that this town is starting to be able to provide this service. It says something about East Lyme, so thank you
Yeah,
very
it
much.
does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Given that, I think we're going to have to table services to community and the other 3 items so that we can stay on target here.
Is that all, Kevin?
I don't,
No.
services to community is,
Is everybody, but I don't.
well, we can do, yeah, we
Yeah.
can do that. We can do that
Thank you
later.
all again.
Thank you,
We
everyone,
appreciate
for
you.
being here. And do you want to take a 2-minute break?
2-minute break.
All right.
Do we have to make a motion?